Radio. Hello, everyone. It's Alex here from Being Better Balanced, and I am so thrilled to have Dr. Nicole Highet with me from COPE, or the Centre of Perinatal Excellence, tonight to discuss everything mental and emotional health around pregnancy, birth, postpartum period, and parenting in general. So, welcome, Nicole. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Alex. It's great to be here.
It is. So, I think probably one of the biggest things that we wanted to chat about, we were just having a little bit of a conversation prior to going live about just how many people struggle with different aspects of pregnancy, parenting, birth, and everything surrounding that period. Tell us what is most common, I suppose, for you to come across and what you see women and men struggling with throughout this time.
Thanks, Alex. Look, I think when you think, well, what are the most common things, or what are the challenges with having a baby? It can be anything, and each step of the journey towards becoming pregnant, being pregnant, coming up to birth, recovering from birth, and the first months and year of having a baby can all bring its own unique challenges. In fact, I don't think you could say to anyone that they sailed through the birth of this baby from beginning to end. That never happens. We're human beings, it's nature. Things are not going to be necessarily as we expect them. And often our expectations, that's something I really want to talk about tonight. When we think about what we're going to expect of what becoming a parent is going to be like, it's often based on things that aren't realistic. And it might be things we've seen in movies. We look at people in the street who have beautiful babies and seem to be bonding and think, that's going to happen to me, that's what it's going to be like. Or people can often tell you horror stories. So, we really don't often have a good idea of what to expect. But, let's take it right back to the beginning of the journey about, even trying to conceive or trying to become pregnant in the first place. So for some couples, this is really, really challenging. Many couples suffer with infertility, and it can actually increase your likelihood of, it impacts on every area of your life. If generally when you decided you want to have a baby, you think, yeah, that's it, I'm ready. You start
calendar, it's going to work this month, this time.
But even, psychologically, you're starting to prepare. You're thinking, oh, yeah, in a year's time, I might have a baby. Something big comes up in the calendar, a wedding or something, I might be pregnant. Or you start visualizing your life and really shaping your priorities, your identity around getting ready for this sort of biological shift that is going to happen. And when that doesn't happen easily and it's delayed, and then often people have strong feelings of failure, that they're failing. As women, their bodies are failing them. Men also feel a great sense of failure. It's what it says about their manhood or their masculinity. Having to go through things like IVF put huge financial strain on couples. It puts huge strain on relationships. And also it's not relationships only with your partner, but also from family and friends, or, just the whole thing of going to social events and worrying about that people are going to be asking you, when are you going to have a baby? And
all that from all the grandparents and aunties.
Exactly, the pressure. So that can be an internal nightmare for many, many couples and individuals. And often that is already a time where it really can be a challenging time emotionally. So that's before we've even started, right? So for a number of couples, infertility can really play havoc with emotional and mental health. Then once we do conceive, obviously then we know that many pregnancies, 1 in 4 or so, end in miscarriage. And obviously
don't discuss, it's not spoken about and made common knowledge, I suppose. So people often do feel like they're really going through that by themselves. And
so it's quite often there's a lot of grief going on there, but other people don't know necessarily what to say. Often it's minimised, like, oh, well, you got pregnant, or so people don't often get the support and empathy that they need at the time. This can obviously then, if you do manage to get pregnant again, it can lead to high rates of anxiety in a subsequent pregnancy. And then during pregnancy, we also know that this is a time when Anxiety, conditions like anxiety and depression are more likely to occur. So we know that up to 1 in 5 women will experience anxiety in pregnancy. So that is many, many people. And up to 1/10. Absolutely. And, 1 in 10 women will experience depression during pregnancy.
Yeah.
So often, and look, often there's such a focus on the physical changes, what you're going through physically. Often these conditions are not identified because people put it down to hormones or put it down to other physical factors. I think for men as well who are not going through the physical changes, the pregnancy isn't really a reality until very late in the pregnancy when it's more obvious. So, they've got a lot of catching up to do mentally and emotionally. Whereas the women have sort of been taken through the changes because it's physically happening to them. Mental health conditions are very common in pregnancy, and we know, for example, if you have a previous history of mental health problems, this can increase your likelihood. So it's really important that women and men know that is a risk factor. We know about risk factors for gestational diabetes or high blood pressure, but people are not necessarily talking about risk factors for developing mental health problems.
No.
So that's probably one of the greatest risk factors, and why, as best practice in your pregnancy care, you should be being asked questions around your mental health history, how you manage with stress, what your support network looks like. These questions which are looking at your level of risk, as well as the likelihood that you might be experiencing depression or anxiety. Let's just take a minute just to describe what that feels like. We all know what it's like to feel anxious before a presentation or something like that. Some people have
doing this, just talking to the conversation. Pregnant.
But some people feel like that all the time, and it's not really associated with a situation, or it doesn't pass on its own. And just living with that constant feeling of dread and fear is very consuming, and it's exhausting. And often, again, signs of anxiety put down to it's hormones or it's something else, and people don't get help for anxiety early. Then depression on the other hand.
Sorry to cut into you. No, you're fine. I just wanted to say, if you guys have got questions as well, because I think I might have forgotten to mention this at the start, but feel free to post them in the comments, and we will try and answer them as we go. Yeah. As long as we don't get too caught up in our own little world of being passionate about all this stuff, but we will definitely get to them.
Early ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Post them in the comments and we will get to them. Sorry, keep going. Yours.
So we're just going to talk about depression then for a moment. So unlike anxiety, which leaves you feeling, very aroused and hypersensitive and, on edge, depression can lead you to feeling really sad or down and finding it really hard to just get through the day. Like getting out of bed for someone with severe depression can be an enormous task. So not getting enjoyment or pleasure out of things that you used to, and just really struggling to get through the day. And there's a number of other symptoms, but that's generally the principles around anxiety and depression. So if you have noticed a change in yourself or someone else, people are avoiding situations, or they're avoiding gatherings, or not the people, you've noticed something different, just think in the background it could be something like anxiety and depression. And it's important, and this is why the government has invested in routine national screening and putting screening in every public maternity hospital in Australia, so we can identify these symptoms as early as possible.
Because that gives us the best chance of getting on top of it too, doesn't it? Getting in there as early as we can. So super important we recognise the slightest change.
Yeah, and just like getting the treatment quickly and getting onto other conditions, it prevents the conditions becoming more severe. And, in the same way that we test for gestational diabetes or other things, we wouldn't think of not testing those things. And so in the same way, mental health is also very common and needs to be identified and treated early.
Yeah.
I was just going to move on to birth, the birth process. So birth brings its own little can of worms. Often we have great high ideals about what birth is going to be like. It might have visions of candles and candles and meditation music and rolling waves, and that is often far from the reality of the birth experience. quite often we're not prepared, I think, for the level of pain that can come with birth. No one's necessarily talking about the pain that can come with birth. And quite often, I think, it's a hard situation for people preparing for birth because they don't want to scare you, but equally, you need to go in with some level of feelings of control. And this is the hardest thing, I think, about birth is you can't always control the outcome. You can't control if the baby twists or moves in an awkward position or something happens with your blood pressure or, you can't control everything. And so, look, I always advise people to just really try and keep an open mind. It's good to have some strategies, but try and keep an open mind. But the most important thing when it comes to birth is whatever happens, it is never your fault.
Yeah.
And I think, birth is often seen as, it's the moment of entry when you become a parent, and there is so much pressure for that to be so perfect. It's something that either went well or it didn't go well, so it's defined as success or it's defined as failure.
And we use those terms even throughout the birth process, which frustrates me no end, that there's failure to progress or those sorts of terms. So already we're instilling that in ourselves and in the women that we're caring for, that you're either good at it or you're not so good at it. So it's a really bitter pill to swallow as well.
Yeah, and it's often seen as it's your entry point to motherhood, and it's seen in some ways, and we internalise this ourselves as it's a reflection of us as people, as we enter mothers and become mothers. So there is a huge amount of pressure, and pressure we often put on ourselves. But I think it's really important that we prepare for birth by being as open-minded as we can and understanding that. Just like you can develop other conditions in pregnancy, you can't control everything, and whatever happens, it's never your fault. And the most important thing is that you and your baby are healthy. However that birth eventuates and things come out, it's never your fault. And you just
say to our women all the time, we can prepare and control the preparation and the lead up, but we can't control the outcome. So we do all the right things, and like you said, we just don't know. Birth can be unpredictable, so it's important to go in there being prepared and and practiced and having all those different tools and techniques, but still, like you said, open-minded.
Exactly.
Not always going to go that way.
And the most important thing is then getting support in your recovery, so having that time and space and opportunity to talk about your experience when you're ready. And it's really interesting. Quite often, when someone's birth didn't go to plan, the pressure then for breastfeeding to work. It's like I failed at this, so breastfeeding must work. I need to prove to myself I am still a good natural mother. So then this exacerbates the pressure around breastfeeding. And when breastfeeding does go to plan and does go well, it can actually be very healing around the birth experience. It's sort of restoring those feelings and helping with the bonding, and it can be a very positive, nurturing experience, particularly with the birth experience. It hasn't gone well. But for others, partly potentially related to the birth experience and the milk supply and just the stress and distress, that can actually impede breastfeeding, and then the trauma almost is magnified. So birth trauma is also something that is not well spoken about, and I think partly this is because health professionals don't want to have that conversation because of the duty of care and the onus of responsibility at times. So people in a post-labour ward are not often asked if birth didn't go well because no one really wants to talk about it, and as a result, this can make the trauma go on for a longer period.
I read a statistic that you guys shared, I'm sure it was from your website, around the amount of women who aren't screened whatsoever for any postpartum or even during their pregnancy. I think it was a huge figure. Do you have that off the top of your head, or am I putting you
on? Some stats were just produced recently looking at screening rates, and look, they really have improved across Australia. Australia is probably the leading country in the world around screening, but still 1 in 5 women are not being screened and not being identified. I mean, we would never think of not screening or giving ultrasounds or other preventative tests, but still there is a significant proportion of people who aren't being screened, and so we need to get better at that.
It makes sense as well. I mean, working with so many women, your mental state and how you're feeling emotionally, particularly in that postpartum period, can really set you up for success or failure, for lack of a better word, in that period in all aspects as well. So it seems crazy that we wouldn't go, this is pivotal, that we are looking after these women and making sure that they're getting the help that they need.
That's right. And we really need to be keeping a close eye. And we as women need to be empowering ourselves with that information about what we realistically can expect, what is normal, what is hormones, what's not hormones, what is something else. But also, there's the added layer of complexity in the mental health areas is also the high expectations, which I mentioned at the beginning, about what you want motherhood to be like and your experience of parenthood to be like, and striving for that experience. And often this can lead to people denying when things aren't going well. So they don't want to talk about it. They don't talk about it with their friends in case they'll be judged as not being good mothers or successful mothers. And as a result of that, that robs them of the opportunity to get the support that they need and the understanding that they need. But they're trying to save face and say everything's good, everything's perfect. Yep, I'm good. And in fact, our research has actually shown that almost 74% of women who experienced anxiety or depression during pregnancy or postnatally did not seek help until they reached crisis point.
Wow.
So 3 in 4 women are not getting help until they reach crisis point. And that's because they're ashamed, they're worried about what other people are going to think, they don't know where to go. They didn't know what the signs and symptoms were. They put it down to other factors and thought, it's just the baby blues, it's going to go away on its own. So there's a need for education. There's a need for conversation change. There's a need for screening. And very importantly, then the need to build an environment or a community and a culture which accepts and acknowledges that, the birth or path to parenthood is going to have its challenges. It's easier for some than others, and it's easier sometimes from one child to the next. The temperament of the baby, the breastfeeding, being
community.
Yeah.
There's too.
That's right. And look, even things like other small things which people don't feel that they can even talk about is like being incredibly disappointed about the gender of your baby. Things like gender disappointment. Breastfeeding, these are all challenges that are part of an impact on the way we feel about ourselves and the way we feel within ourselves. And certainly, if they're not going well and we don't get the support that we need, they certainly do increase our risk of anxiety and depression also in the postnatal period. So you've got all these changes, all these expectations, all these challenges, and if you're already vulnerable and things don't go well and you're not getting support, then the likelihood of depression and anxiety in the postnatal period is also much higher. So we know that 1 in 5 women also experience postnatal anxiety, and 1 in 7 women in Australia will experience postnatal depression.
Yeah.
So think about the mothers group. That is going to be 2 or 3 or 4 women in your mothers group who are going to be affected. So it's really important that as a community we know what to look for, we're having the conversation, and we're building a culture where it's okay to talk about the challenges and acknowledge that life isn't perfect and motherhood's never going to be perfect.
For anybody, I think social media has a huge role to play in that as well, that we see these little glimmers of people's lives and think, oh my gosh, they've got it so sorted. How do I have, chaos around me?
Yeah.
But we don't see ins and outs of their world either.
And it's not realistic. It's not the reality. And, sometimes there's a reason that they're posting those things, that everything is perfect, because they want to portray that for whatever reason. But that's not the reality of motherhood. And it's never like that 24/7. So it's really important that we do talk about the realities, and that creates a more supportive, connected community. So I just wanted to touch on some of the great things for your viewers who are expecting a baby or have a new baby. The first place I'd really encourage, if you need anything, all things emotional health around having a baby, I'd really encourage you to check out the COPE website at cope.org.au.
I will put all of these in the comments and things for the live once it's finished, so you guys will be able to refer to that as well.
Yeah. So cope.org.au, it's really the one-stop shop around everything you need to know that can happen and how it can impact you and what you can do to prepare yourself and look after yourself, and also how to identify symptoms early and where to get help. We have amazing resources on there, amazing information, and it's really, most importantly, it's all underpinned by Australia's national guidelines, which COPE developed for the Commonwealth Government, and it's very important that you look at the quality of the information that you're looking at online. Absolutely. And always look for that it is endorsed by best practice. So look for that logo up there that tells you that it is best practice information. So the website is a great place to start. We also have the Ready to Cope guide. So this is a free email that you can sign up to at any stage from 6 weeks pregnancy right through to the end of the first year of your baby's life in the postnatal period. And like those emails that you can sign up to, and it will give, you know, your baby's the size of a peanut and now it's the size of a, you know, small grapefruit. This will give you information all about the things that people aren't talking about and what to expect and what can happen and how to deal with these different changing perceptions and emotion and identity, how to build your support network, how you can prepare for birth, what if birth doesn't go to plan, when is it time to get help, all these different topics we cover in the Ready to Cope guide. So it's a great way. You just sign up at readytocope.org.au, you put in how many weeks pregnant or postnatal you are, and then you'll get the information by email that's relevant to where you are at the time.
Yeah, so that's a great idea from you guys. I love that. It's so helpful because, yeah, like you said, we there's so much physical focus. And I know myself, you know, as a chiropractor, that's what most people are coming into our office for. So this side of things is hugely underutilized, and yeah, I think it's a great initiative.
Yeah, and look, I think sometimes some health professionals are a lot more confident and comfortable talking about mental health and proactively do that, but a lot don't. So this is a sure way of making sure that you're getting access to that information. And, you know, we're on the journey with you right along the way and empowering you with the information that people aren't talking about, but making sure that you've got those insights and learning from others and learning from the research about what can actually be helpful. Preventing things happening, but also if things aren't going well, you know, when is it time to get help and where can you get support? The third place I just really would encourage mamas and mamas to be would be to go to the Mama Tribe. So this is mamatribe.com.au. We're partnered with Mama Tribe. This is like a national online community of mums. So there's around 50,000 women. They're all separate Facebook groups around the country. And you can join up with your own Facebook group and have conversations. And importantly, then you can have meetups with your community and meet other women, because loneliness and isolation are a huge challenge. And certainly something I struggle with, being isolated from my family who are over in the West and my husband's family all from Ireland. The isolation was probably one of the biggest challenges. And if I had something like Mama Tribe, I would have been right in there. But so Mama Tribe is a great support network, and I'd really encourage you to sign up to your local Mama Tribe, and then you'll have a supportive community around you as well.
Fantastic. I think that's such a brilliant idea, and I've just hope that all of the women that are watching this and that watch it after it's been recorded as well are utilising these resources, because they're so very valuable when we are vulnerable during this time. So please make sure you utilise them and have these conversations, because they are so very important. So thank you so much for coming on and being a part of all of this, Nicole. I really appreciate it. And I think all of the women out there that are hearing all of this and hearing about these resources and support networks that they have are going to be incredibly grateful as well. We are incredibly lucky to have Nicole joining us a little bit later in the year for an interactive webinar to delve into all of this stuff even further. So please make sure that if you haven't already, check out our website and make sure that you've signed up for that, so that you are right on the ball, have all of this information at your feet, and have a really smooth transition into pregnancy, parenting, and, you know, life with children. It's tricky. So let's support each other on it.
Absolutely. And a big shout out to Louise, I can see there, who's got...
I've just commented, all these comments pop up as well.
And fantastic online mamas group, West Assured Mums. I highly recommend. They have great topics of conversations about the real stuff as well. So good on you, Louise.
Fantastic. Well, I'll leave it there. Thank you again for joining us, and we will see you all soon. Bye, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.